Dr. Brewster, my
Oh, we're
control.
live.
We're live. Good morning, guys.
Good
Good
morning,
morning.
everyone. It is, what is today? I have
It's
lost. It's
Thursday.
Thursday, June
I thought you thought it
5th.
was Friday.
And this is Dr. Kilt's morning meetup.
Yep.
Welcome, everyone. Please tell us where you're coming from, where you're watching from, where you're in life right now on this globe. Uh, I'm Dr. Nelson Vasquez with Alia, and today we have Michael Fine. Before we start, Alia, what are we doing this weekend? Well, not you, but what's happening this weekend?
I'm just going to be relaxing at home. That's what I'm doing this weekend with the kids. But Dr. Nelson and Dr. Kiltz are going to be Seattle at the Seattle meetup along with Dr. Baker. I believe, is Anthony Chafee going to be there? I'm not sure. And Bella and Carrie and Adam. That's what you guys are doing this weekend.
Yeah,
And everyone's welcome to
I
hang
don't
out there
think
with them.
Chafee's going to be there, but hey, if he shows up, it would be
That'd be
great.
cool.
He is originally from that corner of the
Yeah,
world.
he was there a lot this year. That's why I'm thinking he might be there. But no, but that's gonna be awesome. And then guess what happens in 3 weeks? Actually, in 21 days or 21 days, 26 days. In
Something like that.
26 days, we're doing an event in Boston with Dr. Nelson, Dr. Kiltz, Professor Thomas Seyfried, Dr. Boz, Diane Ladd, Amy Perrin's going to be speaking, and Chris Brandlin will be speaking. Probably some other people I can't remember, but it'll be very fun. So there you go. I'll put the
Yeah,
link in the
it's
chat.
a big lineup.
A big
So,
lineup.
link is in the description for the meetups. If anyone,
Yeah.
obviously you still have time. The meetup is in 2 days. Uh, Tomorrow we'll be basically traveling to Seattle. That's going to be a long trip for me because I have to go diagonally across country, and on the I think one of the trips was going to be 15 hours.
Oh wow, I'm so sorry.
With the stuff. That's okay.
I understand that going to South America, but I don't understand that in the States. Okay.
All right.
Terry, I just want to answer this question. Terry Roberts ruling. Yes, I'm going to Boston. Please come. There you go. I will be in Boston.
Links are in the description for the meetups to become a member of the Kills Mighty Tribe. If you're not a member, please go there and sign up. It is free, and we have a Monday Zoom call for the members only, and then we have 7 other hours of live streams during the week.
And this Monday is Ben Azadi. He's a special guest this Monday. All right, I think we did all of our announcements except put hashtag fine for a chance to win a Kills Cup. There you go. Hashtag fine in the chat.
By the way, on my message to you this morning that you read this morning, I forgot Zoom call. I'm not sure if I'm gonna make it the Zoom call on Monday, but
I'll be there with Ben Asadi and Dr. Kiltz.
I'll be boarding.
There you go.
Okay, so Michael Fine, welcome this morning. Thank you for being here. And why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us where you are. Tell us your story.
Well,
and how you ended up here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nelson. So yes, my name is Michael Fine, and as you can see, I go by Ancestrally Healed. It's actually a really interesting story how I've kind of gotten to where I am today, because it's something that was never planned. They always joke you try and fight and trying to figure out what you want to do in your life, but you kind of get pulled on the path you're supposed to go on. And when you're walking the right path, everything just feels peaceful and right. And that's kind of where I know I am now. My story really started, starts kind of 10 years ago, but it really starts even further than that if you kind of go back through my childhood, because I'm a product of the 90s. And as you know, what it was like growing up in the 90s with the food pyramid, everything was completely wrong.
Yeah.
And everybody followed the nutritional guidance to a T because they thought that's what we were supposed to do to be healthy. And so throughout my childhood, I actually grew up very, I guess, underdeveloped, if that makes sense. I was extremely late bloomer. And I was taken to doctors. Everyone was trying to ask, what's going on. And they just thought I wasn't eating enough calories. But looking back at it now, I probably wasn't being fed enough fat and meat to give my body what it really needed. So there was actually a time where the doctors told my parents to force feed me Yoo-hoo as like a 3-year-old to give me calories
Wow.
because I was just so small. Like I looked like I was a year or two younger than what I should have been just because of how I was developing. And as we kind of go a little bit further through and we're starting to kind of get into like puberty years, I don't know what was going on, but there was just so much stress that my body kind of started to present it in really interesting ways. Like at that time I had braces, and I even had issues with like these really bad mouth sores. They weren't cold sores, but it was just something that was happening from the inflammation of what was going on in my body. And doctors really were never able to tell me what was going on. And obviously stress was a big trigger of that with terrible nutrition. And as that goes on, I finally got to a point, believe it or not, when I was 15 years old, I was 5'1". And when I graduated,
Wow.
I was 5'1" when I got my permit.
Wow.
And I'm 6 foot now.
Okay.
So interestingly enough, when I turned 16, I started really working out and I started eating correctly because I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be able to play with my friends, like play sports and all those different things and compete. And interestingly enough, when I started really eating, I started to grow. But the issues that kind of came along with that, and they started to again present themselves in college, is I then left. And of course, being a college kid, you drink way too much. You eat terrible food. You do meal plan, and you have to assume there's canola oil and all of that. And before you knew it, I started having gastrointestinal issues, which later got diagnosed as IBS, which is a really fun diagnosis because that's the doctors basically saying, we know there's something wrong with your intestinal tract, but we can't really tell you what it is. So let's just put this generalized label on you, which isn't really helpful because when you're running to the bathroom 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 times a day, and you think you need to go and there's nothing happening, it's really frustrating and it's debilitating, especially in a social manner, if you're trying to study for tests, all those different aspects that come along with that. And soon after, I started to present psoriasis, which again, as we know, it all kind of stems from the gut, and it's systemic inflammation that starts to present itself in your skin. And ironically, in my family, I have so many familial predispositions. Like if anybody's watching this and you have familial predispositions and they tell you you're stuck with it, it's not the truth. Because if that was the case, I could potentially get Crohn's, ulcerative colitis. I mean, there's different cancers that run in my family, addiction, all these different issues that I don't deal with. And I think that I don't deal with. So as all these things were presenting itself, I then started to get anxiety. I started having depression. I started having sleep issues. And that's when the merry-go-round started. My doctor first prescribed me on my first antidepressant. I think it was Vibrad, which was terrible. And this should have been a big sign for me that doctors really don't know everything that they're prescribing. But me being the typical American, you think that, well, if a doctor tells you to take this, this is the right thing to take, and problem solved. But the reality was I was having some crazy side effect where at night, when you would watch the like the hospital shows and somebody's going into cardiac arrest and they pull out the paddles and they say
Yeah.
charge and you hear that charging noise. Well, weirdly enough, that was actually what I was feeling in my brain. And when I told my doctor about the side effect, his immediate response was, no, that's something that doesn't take place. But when I Googled side effects of Vibird, that was one of the first side effects that people complained about. And that should have been a moment for me where I should have said, well, you know what, maybe I need to start investigating things a little bit further. But I was young. When you're in your early 20s, you don't think about things like that unless you have a really, really severe health issue that makes you kind of look at your life a little bit differently. And then after that, that's when they started prescribing me the different benzodiazepines for my anxiety, for my sleep issues. And yeah, it began to kind of get a little bit tough. And that was it. I was on this merry-go-round. I'm sorry. I'm actually, weirdly enough, I'm a little bit more nervous than I thought I was going to be.
It's okay.
You're doing fine.
Oh, thank you.
Not a problem.
So so finally I got to the point with my psoriasis and it was really starting to get worse. And I went to my dermatologist and I told her what was going on. And first we tried the creams and we tried the different treatments. And before you knew it, I was prescribed Stelara, which my father is also on different biologics. So it just seemed the right course. And that's what I was on for 10 years. And through those 10 years, every time I would get a cold, I was sick constantly throughout the year to where people would think, are you really sick? But I was, because my immune system was so compromised, literally trying to keep under control my psoriasis, which I'm not afraid to say because it's something that I went through during a time in my life where I'm proud of it because it's something that helped me become aware and helped me get to where I am now. So I own it because it's a part of my story and it's part of my journey, but it's not something that's stuck with me, as some people like to think of it like that when you claim it as yours. So there was a time where my mother-in-law, she would always ask me questions, and she was always a little bit further along on the health journey than I was. And she'd always say, well, Michael, why don't you try getting off your Stelara? And I would tell her, well, like I have Crohn's that runs in my family. My grandmother had lupus. My brother had ulcerative colitis. Like, I know that this suppresses my immune system. And my biggest fear is if I come off of this, well, maybe my psoriasis won't come back, but maybe I'll then be stuck with all these other autoimmune issues that run in my family. And I watched my brother go through his ulcerative colitis, in high school, and he ended up getting his colon removed. So when you see all of that, and then you're afraid of what may happen, that fear kind of gets you stuck in that medication hamster wheel, because fears is the biggest thing. Your emotions is really what controls a lot of us. So what kind of started to get me to a point where I started looking at food a little bit differently was I have a good friend of mine who's into sourdough, and every time I would talk to him, he would make comments about it. And it wasn't until like the fourth or fifth time where I finally listened. And he started explaining the different process and how the lactobacillus ferments and this and that. And once I started getting interested in that, that's when you kind of start looking at food in itself, and you start realizing how wheat has changed so much in the last 100 years. In the 1960s was the biggest change that really, in my opinion, really changed the way that we could digest wheat, period, because the real ancient grains don't exist anymore. But that was a key that unlocked my mind to say, well, if all the grains that are on our shelves are not actually healthy and they're all fortified with synthetic vitamins, and you start looking at what food quality is, when I finally was getting to the point where I was able to get on this carnivore journey, my mind was already open to food in more of a medicinal supportive way, if that makes sense. Because if food supports you, you live an optimal life. And if you're consuming foods that don't support you, your body starts to show problems, whether it be anxiety, depression, psoriasis, autoimmune, whatever the systemic inflammation may be, your body's going to give you hints about that, because it's saying there's something wrong here, and I'm trying to give you the clues that you could get. And if you're not at a point in your life where you're ready to listen, you don't really hear it. So so as now I'm in the sourdough journey, and I had a son at this point, which it's really interesting seeing how where you are and the mindset is, how that actually changes the way your children eat and what their habits turn into. Because my son was born in 2021. So this was shortly after COVID, and this was before I kind of woke up. So, you think like the baby oats at 4 months old, all these different issues. And I just thought it was normal. And looking back at it now, I realized that I was setting my son up to basically mentally be addicted to blood sugar for the rest of his life, because that was the first thing that he was getting, carbs. When with my daughter, 6 months old, she was getting 2 egg yolks, liver, bone marrow. I mean, all these wonderful fatty foods that is just so good for the brain. But I didn't know any better with my son. So I'm sorry, I kind of backtrack things a little bit, but before I was getting to the point, hold on, I want to say this correctly. I'm sorry. So the sourdough journey started in about 2020, in the beginning of 2022, let's say. So this is right before my mind was being opened up to all of that, if that makes sense. And as you know, we were kind of going through a situation that happened in 2020, which I don't want to go too much into. But it was another kind of eye-opening situation, because when my wife was pregnant and everything was being rolled out, I actually called the hospital and I said, God forbid my wife comes in and she tests positive. And if I follow the rules, would I be able to go in for when she gives birth? Because the last thing I wanted was my wife to give birth without me. And you would think with everything how it is, once you take what you're supposed to, everything should be fine. But the reality is the head nurse said, well, you know what? No one's asked me that question. So what I could say is you're more likely to be there if something happens. And if that did not take place, that was another key unlocking moment that made me realize, besides what happened with my doctor in my early 20s, that things that you think are supposed to happen in a certain way don't exactly work the way they're supposed to. So now that my mother-in-law is asking me all these different questions, and she's always trying to get me to come off, I have the fear and the wanting to want to get off all my medication. But the issue is I could not work up the courage to truly do it. So we were getting to the point where now my daughter is going to be born in a few months. I have my son, and I'm just thinking to myself, I want to be here for a long time. And I get a call from Stelara, because as you know, you get an injection 4 times a year. And what the first thing they say is, are you taking anything new? And at this point, I was kind of messing with little Ceylon cinnamon in my diet, not as a supplement, but just adding it into my diet. And they said, we need to patch you over to the pharmacist. And I asked why. And the pharmacist told me, well, we need to record the interaction. I go, the interaction between Ceylon cinnamon and Stelara? They go, yeah. And that was a big aha. Well, if you don't know what cinnamon could do while I'm on this drug long term, that means that in the reality, I'm creating a short-term reward to where I don't have to look at issues on my skin, but I have no idea what that's really going to do to me 40 years from now. And my wife's is about ready to give birth. And I realized I want to be here for a very long time. I want to be here for my wife. I want to be here for my kids. And I want to really share as much of the journey with them as I can while I have, enough time to be blessed to be here on this earth. And so my wife was having some issues with, getting close to pregnancy, very uncomfortable. So my mother-in-law got her in touch with an acupuncturist, an Eastern doctor, where when he went in and was speaking with her, I guess she started sharing a little bit of what I was going through and what my issues were. And he said, if you bring him to me, let me talk to him, and let me see if I could help him, because I really think I could help him out. So she told me about Eduardo over here in Fort Lauderdale at Soul Acupuncture. The guy's awake. I love him. And I sat down with him, free consultation, and he said, listen, I could definitely help you with your issues. And I said, well, what do we need to do? He says, you just have to eat meat. I'm like, excuse me? I need to just eat meat? He's like, yeah, just eat meat. And I'm like, well, how much meat? He's like, eat when you're hungry, stop when you're not. I'm like, does it matter what kind of meat? He's like, if it walks, if it has a heartbeat, if it moves, you can eat it. So I was like, okay, this sounds interesting. I go, I think I just got my green light to eat as much red meat as I would like, because I've always loved it. And with my father growing up having high cholesterol, which obviously we know isn't that big of an issue, and high blood pressure, all these things, we didn't really eat that much red meat growing up. And if we did, it was very thin. And if there was any fat, I was the type of kid that would cut that off, put it to the side of the plate. And I wanted it off my plate because I just didn't even like the way it looked. And hold on, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I got a little bit sidetracked. One of the issues is my mind thinks, and I kind of go off in tangents, and I come back. And do you mind if you kind of just help bring me back from where I just was?
Sure.
Yes, I'm so sorry.
Oh no, but I had to leave the studio for a second. So, but here's Dr. Nelson.
Yeah, Dr. Nelson, can you clear me back? The only thing that I'm still stuck with is a little ADD. And with that ADD, my mind races and I go off on little tangents, and then I bring it back around, but sometimes I kind of lose my train of thought a little bit. So do you mind just kind of cueing me?
You're doing fine.
Thank you.
Just continue.
Okay. So I left that meeting with Eduardo basically saying, oh, I'm just going to eat meat. So I go and I get all this meat, not really knowing what I'm supposed to do with it. And I'm eating ground beef. I'm eating filet mignon. I ordered this Texas Wagyu, which I thought was amazing, but now I know the fat just isn't right. If it just, for some reason, it just isn't right. Like whenever I would eat it, I wouldn't feel right. Like even now when I eat Wagyu, it just doesn't sit right. I don't know how to explain it. It's like too much.
Yeah, I've experienced that.
Yeah. So I'm eating my meat. I think I'm doing everything. And at that point, I'm eating like I normally would 3 times a day. And it got to the 3rd day where I had made lamb and I was holding my son to put him down for bed. And I called my wife. I was like, I need you to come take him. And she said, why? I'm like, I need you to take him. And I guess I wasn't consuming enough fat. So I had some leftover lamb. And the first thing I went on that lamb was the fat. And the moment I started eating that, I just felt like this energy come around me. And that's when all of my dislike for fat in my entire life changed. And I think at that point, my body was, becoming adapted, that I was really able to understand what I was eating and what that nutrition was doing for me and how good that really was going to make me feel. And from that day on, I actually realized that what I needed to do was I needed to prioritize fat, but I didn't know at what point. And at this point, I went to my doctor and we did a blood test about, a few weeks in, and my cholesterol went way up. I mean, I was in the 400s. She was telling me, Michael, you're a great guy. You're going to die. You need to take baby aspirin. This diet's going to kill you. And
wow.
Oh yeah. And it's scary when your doctor tells you that, and you just had a daughter, your son, is 2 years old, and your whole point of doing this mission is you want to be here for a long time. And now you're being told by your doctor that you're not going to be. It's really confusing. So at that point, that's when I realized what I needed to do is I needed to start doing research. And I would start asking Eduardo, because I was going there every day for acupuncture and different things like that. And he started giving me different YouTube videos of doctors talking about cholesterol. And at that point, I was 154 pounds. I thought I was thin, but throughout the next 4 months, I actually lost 14 pounds. And one of the things that I'd like to say is the reason is when I first started this, because I was dealing with psoriasis, which is very tricky. There's a lot of different triggers. You don't know what it could be. It could be vegetables. It could be shellfish. It could be this. So I was basically on the lion diet before I even knew the lion diet existed. I didn't even know this community existed. I got off of social media 5 years beforehand because I was working a different job and I was doing marketing. And once I got off, I was like, I'm never going back on. And and it got to a point where I was working out, I was getting thinner, and I didn't realize I was chronically exercising. So when your body's going through all this and you're chronically exercising, it's kind of like you're working so much against yourself. So he finally got me in touch with, he sent me some videos of Shafi, of Paul. And at this point, I think Paul was animal-based, but I didn't really understand what it was. So I started with him on day one, and I went through this whole carnivore journey because I didn't know what was, I didn't know anything about anything. And I just needed information because my doctor said I was going to die. So I started at episode 1, and I just started educating myself, learning about blood markers, learning about all these different things. And finally, I got connected with kilts because I'm not on social media looking and searching, and I try to interact, but I have 2 kids. I work 2 jobs. So I just don't have the time that I have. And when I finally came across him and I realized, like, hey, it's not just young people. I mean, it's people of all ages. And he is showing that as a 55-year-old, you could change your life and become optimal. And that got me thinking about my dad. And as I'm speaking to my dad and as I'm listening to all this different information, and I am conversing with people around me, because people are like, hey, what's going on with you? You know, you look like you've lost some weight, or you're looking healthy. Or so I would start explaining all these different things that I'm learning. And they would say, hey, you know, you sound like you should start a podcast. You sound like you need to share your story. And I said, you know what? After hearing this for months, I said, let me start an Instagram page, which I started back in September. And I was just sharing my story. And before you know it, someone reached out to me from Ireland and was talking to me about his psoriasis issues. Mm-hmm. And another person reached out to me talking about gout issues. And what I told them was like, hey, I can't tell you that any of this is a cure because I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not here to treat you. But what I can say is I've learned that when you consume foods that truly support you and you do it for a long enough of a period of time, depending on what your healing process is, you'll see as a side effect all the issues that you were fighting and you thought was crippling you, they kind of go away. And it's just, what I've learned is all these signs is just a way of your body to tell you, hey, there's something going on. You need to check it out. But none of us have learned to really listen to our bodies anymore because we're so focused on what society makes us focus on that, you know, we don't pay attention other than what we need to do next. So, so as I've continued this, I then realized that I think I want to have a little bit of a deeper education and get some certifications. But then I also thought that I want to try and help or have converse with people at all different stages, depending on where you are. Because some people, if you tell them, hey, you just need to eat meat, they're like, no, I'm not ready for that. And other people are more accepting of the idea of making a drastic diet change. So one of the things that I've done is I've actually become, I kind of work with people all from primal through carnivore, because what I've learned is when you start on primal and you eliminate just a few things and people start to feel better, then they're like, oh, I feel better, but I still have issues. And then they're up to a conversation to maybe go a little bit further. Mm-hmm. And those are people that if I would have just came out and said carnivore, and that's what you need to do, they would never have been accepting of it. So I've taken the time to make sure that I've allowed myself to be as, yeah, my doctor tried to get me on a statin too. Yeah, it's so crazy. And once you go down the wormhole,
at this point,
yes,
you're already eating meat. You started sharing on Instagram. When was that you started actually eating only meat?
I started eating only meat about 2 years and 4 months ago. It was about 2 months before my daughter was born. So I would say,
okay, So
April,
a little bit over two
April.
years,
Yep.
and but you were still taking your Stellara, you
Yes.
correct?
Yes. So I was still
And
taking my Stellara.
when are you still taking that?
No, I have not been on any medication for over 2 years.
Yeah,
And
okay.
what was really interesting with me with Stellara is every single time my injection would be coming up, I would start to show little signs of of the psoriasis coming back. So one of the things that was nice about this was, and that was the last drug that I waited to come off of, because I knew that if what I was doing worked, then I would not start to show signs. And my doctor or my dermatologist worked with me because I said, hey, I know my shot's coming up. I want to allow it to go on a certain amount of time, because the last thing I want to do is put myself in a situation where I'm really going to hurt myself, which, is just me having the safety belt idea, which now looking back at it was so foolish, because the signs never came back. The only time I started to experience any issues with psoriasis is when I started experimenting with different aspects of my diet. And I discovered that if I consume way too much dairy, it's a trigger, which is something that I've come back from. But yeah, so when I started this, I was on Stellara, and because it never happened, it never started to show signs. I never took another shot, and that was a little over 2 years ago now.
Okay. So,
And it's
and no signs of psoriasis after you stopped your medication.
only when I was consuming too much raw
Dairy.
dairy, but it was way too much raw dairy. I was starting my morning with like an egg yolk and some raw kefir and some raw milk, and then I would go to the gym and have some more raw milk and I have some cheeses, because it's just, when you finally get that lactose put back in your system, your body kind of wants it, because at the end of the day, we're primitive beings, and your body doesn't know what tomorrow's going to bring. If you're able to go inside and say, "Hey, body, where do you think I am right now?" It would say you're in a forest, or you're out doing whatever you need to do. It doesn't think of us being in a city. So when you're in a situation where suddenly you get these carbs or this lactose, that's something that you can convert into fat, and your body knows that, it's like, oh, I could store this. Like, we haven't had a lot of body fat, you burned a lot of it off. Let's store some fat, because we don't know if we're going to get hungry again. So
Mhm.
I think in a way I was almost like addicted to the dairy, because it was just so good. I was eating nothing but meat, salt, and eggs for 3 months, and the first thing that we started to test back in was dairy, and it was butter, and it was slowly. And I think at about 6 months is when I started really consuming dairy in that way, and I immediately listened to my body, cut that out. And now, if I have cream, if I have some milk, I don't have any issues. It's just I cannot have it at the quantity of what I did. It was just overloading the system.
Okay. Um, I interrupted you at some point here, but you were already fully carnivore, off your medication. Your psoriasis, you identify one of the triggers in dairy, and sometimes the poison is in the dose, right? If you just have a little bit of this and that without having major consumption. And yeah, dairy products can be a little bit addictive. They do have casomorphine,
Oh, we're having internet issues.
and
Oh, well, here, we'll take a question. We'll take a question while that's happening. I hate when we have internet issues. Juliet Murray, what medications, if you are currently on taking, if any?
The only medication I take is meat and
there are
fat
many.
and bacon and butter.
That's
That's the
Okay.
only
meant
medication I need.
You got frozen for a while. We couldn't hear you. Oh, he's gone. Gotta love this. That's great. I love your medication.
Literally, and
Uh,
I made a few posts online, showing like the red pill or the blue pill with different items that are in them, because I found like if there was this one time where, I mean, I hadn't had like Brussels sprouts in forever, and I took one bite and my gut, it was just like the IBS came right back. So that's when I realized, when I consume things I'm not supposed to, my body is not going to react the way that it needs to be. And once you're optimal and you feel great, you just don't want to go back. And when I tell people
Right.
I haven't really had a vegetable in 2 years, they're like, excuse me? How does that work? How do you go to the bathroom? I go, well, you switch from fiber to fat. It works extremely well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy.
So you have two kids right now,
Yes.
and what do you feed them?
So every morning, they're eating eggs. Because they are children, it's kind of hard to, I don't want to just throw them into a carnivore diet. Just because I've learned the more you try and put something on a child, the more likely they are to turn away from it. So I'm a big believer on be the leader, not the teacher. So I give them healthy options. They do have fruit available, but when they go, Daddy, would you like a bite of the banana? I say, I don't eat bananas. Or Daddy, would you like a bite of this? I really don't eat that. Or my favorite one is when they come back from soccer practice and they go, Daddy, do you see this lollipop? I go, it's actually poison on a stick.
Yeah.
And well, do you eat it? No, there was a time where I thought I liked it, but it's a trick. It makes you want to like it, but it's really not that good for you. And I just lead by my example. And I hope that eventually they'll see how well I'm doing. They're going to want to be like me, and then hopefully they'll follow a similar diet. But I know no matter what, my kids are already in a way better spot because they're not consuming anything that I was consuming growing up. I mean, we had every cookie, every cereal, every
Mm.
potato chip, every like little box of mini cereals. I mean, we had all the bad stuff in our house. And I know that my kids don't have that. And just knowing that right now is already a major victory for me. And I mean, my daughter, she loves bone marrow. She loves eggs. I mean, we give them with breakfast. There's this little there's these little things called like meat sticks and air fried steak that we'll throw in with them if we're not giving them like cuts of meat or whatever it may be. But they're eating meat at probably once a day. They're having their eggs and they're having some other protein source, whether it be, cottage cheese or salmon or some type of clean source. Obviously not farm raised because you got to be a little tricky with seafood. But with young kids, I'm trying to make sure that I expose them to as much protein sources as possible, because the last thing I want is for them to just become very picky later
Oh
on in
yeah,
life.
totally.
So I
How
definitely.
old are they?
So my son, he's 4, and my
Oh, okay.
daughter is going to be turning 2 on the 21st.
Sorry, I should have done the math. You said when they were born, but
Oh, it's okay.
yeah,
It's
because
okay.
mine are 6, 7, and almost 9. But they love to help make like carnivore meals, but they eat basically very similar to your kids. Like I'm not going to force it on them, but and then they go to a public school where it's a lot healthier than in the States, but still they have carbohydrates, and then they'll come
Yeah.
and say, "Oh, my stomach hurts" or whatever. So they understand, because I don't say they can't have something. They understand what happens after they have something. Like I have the Chinese food experiment where my daughter's like, I want to eat Chinese food. We're at the mall. I'm like, okay. And then that night she's throwing up. So she's like, I
Oh,
will
well.
never eat it again.
Well, there you go. That's the best. That's the best way to learn.
Yeah, exactly. It is because they eat so good at home. Here's a question for you. Marcy Meat, does your wife eat carnivore or standard American diet?
So we all used to. I think as she's watched my journey and she's seen the benefits I've had, that's helped her kind of start prioritizing more animal fat. So I would say my wife is animal based. She is actually beginning to bring down her carb load naturally, which I honestly love. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't push. I let her do everything at her pace. The only thing she does take is different organ supplements, the type that she wouldn't want to eat. And I think when she saw, like, because she used to have the worst menstruation that used to come through.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was debilitating. A few days going into it, her
Yeah.
back would start to hurt, and then she would be a little out of commission for like the week afterwards. And once we
Sure.
started putting real nutrients in her diet, I mean, it was like she didn't even know it was coming. She's like, oh, okay, it's here. Oh, it's gone. And I mean, the way it used to affect her was completely gone. So I think as she's seen all these amazing positive benefits in her own personal life, I think it's allowing her to be able to feel more comfortable, kind of become more carnivorous and cutting out a little bit more of the carbs. And I tell her, I say, at the end of the day, you know, we're hunter gatherers. So if we were walking along the trail and there was a fruit, I mean, we would eat it, but we didn't have hundreds of pounds of it, and we weren't eating it every day, 6 times a day.
Right.
And it seems to be something that's really taken hold. And as I've continued to think with that, and I've gone through my different education, it's also made me start looking at insulin very, very differently and how that is beneficial to the body. It's just, I kind of look at the body in a completely different way, which is absolutely wonderful, because it's the primitive way. It's the way our bodies were really meant to be, not the way we imagine our bodies and how it's supposed to act, if that makes sense.
Right. I love that. I love that for your wife. It sounds like me.
Right.
So, like what you were saying about you with your skin conditions and the IBS, that sounds like me, but the debilitating menstrual cycles also. So I'm very happy for her, because I don't think people realize how easy it is when you've been going through pain your whole life, that it's not the drugs, or in my case, having to take. I never had to take heavy narcotics, but heavy narcotics could get rid of my pain for my cycle, like Vicodin.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just happy that more and more women are experiencing that, like how simple the solution is.
Yeah.
This question for Dr. Nelson. Okay, let's see. I don't know if you answered this one already. GFG Homestead, how did your rheumatologist react when you stopped the biologics?
So they thought I was a little crazy because all they do is work with people that have these types of skin issues, and they never see things resolve. And when I tell them that I'm going to deal with it through diet, and it was my dermatologist. And when I told them I was going to do it through diet, you know, they kind of looked at me and they're like, oh yeah, okay, you try. But 2 years later, now they're like, oh wow, you know, like it works. And interestingly enough, like it's kind of hard on their perspective, because if they started telling all of their patients, well, you could do this, and now we're not charging you for a shot, and I'm not making my money on my shot, because that's how all the doctors make money. So
Right.
if my insurance is being billed at $15,000 a shot 4 times a year, and you have to assume,
crazy.
isn't that insane?
That's insane. That's so criminal.
Right? But you have to
Yeah.
assume with what the copay is and everything that goes on with the dermatologist, like what do they get? Like, do they get anything? I really don't know the business side, but
Yeah.
but doctors, they want to prescribe. They don't want to not prescribe. And that just made me realize that because doctors, all they want to do is prescribe, they really don't understand how everything works. And I just recently released a reel where I was talking about where I ran into a surgeon friend of mine who was looked at me, and everybody after college gains weight and they get their beer belly and all these things. And they say, well, how do you look so good? I said, well, I'm on this healing journey. I eat nothing but meat. Oh, you're going to die. I'm like, well, what makes you say that? He goes, I'm a surgeon. You're going to die. I know. I studied it. I go, okay, so you went through your medical training. I go, how many hours did you learn about the body, about different drugs, how to use those drugs? He goes, oh, hundreds of hours. I go, well, how many hours did you spend learning about food? Not much. I'm like, so how are you going to tell me, if you don't have that much experience and you don't have that much training with nutrition, how can you tell me that I'm going to die when you really don't know how any of this food interacts in the body? I mean, he knew nothing about defense chemicals in plants. He knew nothing about any of that. And and once you start going down that rabbit hole and you realize that these plants really don't want to be eaten, or if they are eaten, it's supposed to be at such a small quantity because it's supposed to hold you over until you get that real fatty meat meal.
Right.
You start having a little bit of problems. And that's the issue with most people today, is they prioritize vegetables, and then they make this small little portion of their plate, you know, their animal fats and their meat. And that seems to be the problem, because you're overloading your body with all these toxins that, you know, the body doesn't readily deal with.
That's crazy. Wow. Yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts like how brainwashed we've been. Not to say that I won't eat pickles every now and then, but
Well,
it's
pickles aren't so
crazy.
bad. They're a fruit. The way I look at
Oh
it,
yeah.
yeah,
They're fruit.
they're fruit. They were made by the plant for an animal to take it and eat it, and pass on the genome of the plant somewhere else. When
Yeah. Poop out the seeds.
that's what the Bible says. When you consume the fruit, consume the seed, and I think it
Yeah.
makes sense because as you were walking along, I mean, if you happen to come across the same area next year, there would be fruit or something growing there. So it's kind of like
Right.
a benefit,
It's true. Fertilized fruit.
right?
Fertilized seed. I had another question. Now my own ADHD is kicking in. Let's see here. So we asked that question. I don't know. What do you say about this one? Bob Lovegreen. I read that for some, drinking raw milk has greatly improved their psoriasis,
Mhm.
maybe changing the gut biome and healing the gut. What do you think about that?
So I know that people have had amazing results with that. It just kind of comes down to where you are genetically, where you've evolved from, because we've all evolved from different areas of the world. So we have, different ancestral genes that are kind of
Right.
more primed towards different foods. But for me, it just did not work well in that manner. But it 100% helps. I actually went through an issue where I had a really, really bad stomach bug. And what I ended up doing was I had a really good dose of raw milk because I knew my gut microbiome was all messed up. And I knew that that was going to help me kind of conquer that and get back on where I needed to go. So, so yeah, raw milk definitely helps some people. It doesn't help me if I try to use it medicinally in that way.
I want to just do a shout out for my favorite thing, bone broth. Bone broth is like magic for skin health when
Oh, I
you are
love it.
doing a carnivore diet. Years I've had terrible eczema on my hand. Carnivore helps, and then bone broth helps your skin even more. So I wish I
Yeah.
would have learned that from the start. So
Oh, I love bone broth. And another thing that I love to do is I'll actually make a mixture of I'll do um about 120 grams of suet tallow from a really
okay,
good source. And then I'll
yeah.
actually mix that with like 5% of a virgin coconut oil. And I use that topically.
Oh,
And
okay.
and it actually works really, really well. And I have some friends that were having skin issues that have tried it, eczema and things like that. And it's been extremely helpful for them.
That's
So
great.
yeah. So I mean, it makes sense. Like anything from the animal, I find helps. Bone broth could be an issue if you have histamine issues. Um, but I find bone broth to be extremely helpful. And if you're somebody that doesn't consume bone broth, start doing it because you may realize that your hair and your nails might start growing a little bit faster than you want them to, as a side effect, other than just your skin. I like to
Yeah,
just say your skin being optimal because that's really what it is.
sure. And many people are always like, "There's no way you're 42." I'm like, "It's the bone broth, baby. Do it."
Right?
You look
It's
very young, also. Like they're like you don't look like you're in your 40s either, and I think that's the
No,
power of
no, I'm not in my
carnivore.
I'm not in my
Oh, I thought somebody
40s.
said you were 41.
No,
I
no,
thought you said,
I'm
okay.
33,
Oh, you're
but
super young. Okay.
I'm 33, but I always joke and I say I'm an extremely old soul in this body. Like I've always gravitated and I've always had better relationships with people that are older than me.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Maybe it's the facial hair. I'm so sorry. I thought someone mentioned in the comments. Sometimes, like, I'm actually not listening because I'm in the comments, and I thought
oh,
someone's like, "Oh, he's 41."
oh no, it's
So
okay.
sorry.
Hopefully I'll look
Well,
like this forever now that I'm on the Fountain of Youth diet.
you will. Look at Dr. Kiltz. He's got so much energy. He's almost 70, and he's like, first of all, he doesn't look like that, and he's just full of energy.
No, the
I
first
want
the
to,
first the first thing I do when I meet somebody who's older and they're concerned, I say, you need to here proof is in the pudding. Look at Dr. Kiltz.
yeah, absolutely, because he's been doing this for like 15 years now. He's
Yeah.
not dead.
No, he's not.
Okay, so Haley, I want to answer your question. Yes, I make my own bone broth, or maybe it's bone stock. I am able to get the front legs of cows from my butcher. You get them cut up in little chunks like this, and you stick it in your Instapot for 2 hours. I think we were right though on the histamine thing. Like if you have histamine issues, you want to do it slow and like a crock pot for like 8 hours. If you don't have histamine issues, you can get it in 2 hours.
Yeah,
and I add it to everything.
They say not to try and pressure cook, I think, for more than 40 minutes because then it starts
okay, maybe
to
I'll
increase.
try that then.
Yeah. Oh, and just as a side note, I've found that if you're able to use the cow knuckle,
yeah,
because there's so much marrow in there.
is that in the foot?
I believe so.
Oh,
I always
okay, yeah.
just ordered as the cow knuckle, and
okay.
and every single time I make that bone broth, it is like the most gelatinous bone broth I've ever, and I don't have to simmer it down to get rid of some of the liquid to get it to that point.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
awesome. So you do it for 40 minutes in your Instapot?
No, so I just know that's kind of like the threshold for when histamines kind of start to pop up. Like even if you're pressure cooking meat, it could kind of also like have that same process. So I just wanted to throw that out there just in case somebody does have histamine issues and they want to go down this rabbit hole of bone broth. It doesn't have any negative effects on them.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. Yeah, exactly. But crock pot 8 to 10 hours or on your stove 8 to 10 hours. We'll do the same as 2 hours in the Instapot, depending on your levels of histamine. Yeah. Maybe you can answer this one. Elke, what do you think of supplements that have minerals but also plant ingredients? Naturopathic doctor gave me supplements, read the agreements, and want to return it. Thyroid support. Thoughts? I'm curious what the supplements are. What are the vegetables, the plants?
Yeah, because the way I look at plants is all of our antibiotics, everything comes from plants. So they're 100% for medicinal uses, not for daily uses, the way I look at it. So if there's something going on where it could kind of be like an additive, I don't see that as that big of an issue. Like if I have something going on, I'll go to my Chinese doctor and he may give me like Chinese herbs to go with that. But that's not something I'm taking every day and continuing. It's a short-term medication for whatever it is that we're trying to work on.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
But when it comes to thyroid support, I mean, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not telling you exactly, I'm not telling you to do something. But I think the biggest thyroid support is to try and limit it as many oxalates as you can. I was just recently listening to a podcast where they were looking at autopsies of thyroids and they're finding massive buildup of oxalates. And then they were finding people that had Hashimoto's, they didn't have as many oxalates. So there's a whole theory, like, is Hashimoto's an autoimmune response to flush oxalates out of your thyroid? Is that why your body's doing that? And it's a really interesting thought when you think about it like that.
Because I have Hashimoto's and the numbers have drastically reduced on carnivore, but I still have the thing, but I don't have any of the symptoms. Does that make sense? Like I don't have the symptoms of Hashimoto's. If you have it, you feel crazy. Wait, you have Hashimoto's? Did you feel crazy? You'll feel crazy.
No, I didn't, but someone in my family was dealing with some issues and was able to work on it again, working on their gut microbiome. And I believe she was also working on with some Chinese herbs. I was telling her that, realistically just eating meat would probably do the same thing, but she was not as receptive and she's not ready to go down this route. So you can't make a horse drink when you bring them to water.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for sure, gluten is like the worst thing for that. Gluten is the worst thing for like almost any issue in your body.
I think like the three worst things you can consume is gluten, spinach, and kale.
Yes. Those were like on the top of my list. Okay. Here's Dr. Nelson. Dr. Nelson, are you coming back? Are you back? Are you back? Hello.
Yeah. Well, I was back on my phone, but you needed to add me because I was.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I'm
so sorry.
Another link. Anyways, I don't know what's going on. I guess I'm having some speed issues.
It happens. Thanks for trying.
I'm back.
Elke had a question. Her doctor is recommending that she takes like a supplement for her thyroid, her naturopath, and I asked her what was in it because she was worried about the plants in it. And then she read the ingredients and didn't want them anymore. But I'm curious if you know about any of these and what your thoughts are on taking a thyroid supplement. Bladder rack thallus, blue flag root, mirth gum resin, nettle,
Well, these are
Ashwagandha. Do you know any of these? Ashwagandha will make you calm.
there are several herbal remedies that could be used, but uh, you know, I did hear Michael mentioning the oxalates and the thyroid in autopsies, oxalate accumulation. Definitely, that's something that can affect your thyroid. You stop all the oxalates, which you don't consume much if you really stop all the plants, and that's great. I do not know specifically about this particular supplement. Uh, you can try it. Eat the fatty meat is probably uh, the best thing you can do, and be careful with the supplements. Do
Right.
research. I used to be very big on supplements. I'm almost completely turned off
How did Kale
on
become?
that.
Yeah, Kale had a great publicist because I think it was before 2016. I think Papa John's was the largest order of kale, and it was to decorate their salad bar. And then I think somebody came out and said that kale is good for you, and then suddenly they created all the kale chips, and it became this huge craze. And then everybody accepted kale as this superfood, but it's more like this super not good for you food.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh, my
And
kale
by
tastes.
itself, I mean, does it taste? Does it even taste good?
No, it's
Kale by
terrible.
itself.
It's
I mean,
so
it's terrible.
amargo. I forgot my English. Bitter. It's so bitter.
Yep,
Bitter.
yep.
And
It's
we have to
disgusting.
remember taste is our first defense mechanism. So if something's bitter, that's your body telling you something. And there's a reason why we have to dress all these different vegetables up with all these different flavors because we
Right.
really don't like them.
Yeah, what
Yeah,
people
it's
like about salad usually is the dressing. So they put neutral vegetables, seed oils with flavors and sugar, all sorts of dressings and stuff. Unless you're making something yourself, they are full of preservatives.
and, and
Not that we're talking about uh, this particular preservatives, but I discovered. You guys know that for 5+ months, I've been conducting an experiment here at home, and I discovered that I have bought some hot dog buns for that January 1st cookout. Nobody ate any of there's
oh no.
hot dog buns here. Still no mold after 5+ months, and I have their buns as well there. Anyways, preservatives. Who knows how long that's gonna last? I'm keeping it next to my chair here.
and what's crazy is how
Uh,
accepted that is as food.
It's so crazy. And you can't imagine what it's doing inside of you until we all are depressed and our bodies are falling apart. Kale chips.
Oof. And the baby
Oh
aspirin, my doctor told me I should have taken baby aspirin twice a day when all of this was going on. And I promise you, if I started that 2 years ago, that would have killed me.
oh my gosh, so terrible.
Stevie Wood.
Right?
Stevie Wood has a question.
Who? I missed one. Who was that? Oh, it's Bronson. I don't see another question.
It was the one right before the kale chips. I think
Oh,
they
kale chips.
it
Good
popped up
morning.
with aspirin in it.
I don't know why I don't see it. So I have the kale chips. Good morning. Choose. There's Dr. Nelson again. I'm sorry. I do not see your question about aspirin. You can put it back in the chat. We've only got a couple minutes left, so I'll try to get that before we go. I'm going to
Yeah,
see. Let me
I think it
see.
was like, what was your thoughts on aspirin or something like that?
Oh, okay. Dr. Nelson, are you here? What are your thoughts on aspirin? I can't find the actual question.
Yeah, I was trying to bring it up, but on my
There it
computer,
is.
there it is.
Okay.
So I take aspirin. Why? Because I had a stroke 6 years ago, and it is something that's compared to many other medications, got, you know, I'm not gonna say not significant problems, but because you could have uh, bleeding as a complication from taking daily aspirin, but it does reduce your risk of having another stroke or heart attack if you had a heart attack. So I'm okay with people taking in a baby aspirin, not for primary prevention, but after someone has had a stroke or heart attack, if there's no other contraindication, a baby aspirin may decrease your chances of getting another one. And it's just one of the many tools you use to avoid having one of those events. They're not nice. They're not good. Okay.
Exactly. Okay, so let's do the draw. The who's going to win a Kilts Cup today? Let's see here. Here we go. That's my drum roll. Leah CS, congratulations. You won a Kilts Cup. Please email me at alia@drkilts.com, and I need your address and your last name, and we will get that shipped to you right away.
Don't forget today at 3 p.m. we have a guest on these same channels. Come back at 3 p.m. live stream with Renee, correct?
Yep. Uh-oh.
And
sorry
and
for the issues.
And tomorrow at 6 a.m. again. Thank you, Michael, for being here. Apologize for my technical difficulties. I don't know if you were having also.
No,
You've been good. Michael's been good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, sometimes I lost Michael without losing you or my own signal. So I don't know.
My system's been behaving.
Yeah, it has been. He's been good. He's been here the whole time.
Life happens, and we have to move on.
I hear my kids starting to stir.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's time. My child will be in here any moment.
All
well,
right.
thank you so much for having me today, and I really hope to come back on in the future. This was wonderful.
Absolutely.
Please shout out where we can find you. If you did it already, I didn't hear it. Where can we find you if we want to look for you?
So my main location right now is on Instagram, and my handle is @ancestrallyhealed. I am starting to work on a YouTube channel and different things like that, but I have so much going on between getting my health coach business going and all my different I guess courses that I'm doing with that it's just I don't have enough time in the day between being a very involved father and everything else. So yeah, right now definitely find me on Instagram and feel free to direct message me. I am extremely friendly, and I love if anything, just tell me your story. I love hearing all the positive stories that everybody in this community has been telling me. It's just amazing how much we could heal ourselves with food that truly supports our body, which is meat, butter, bacon, and eggs.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you for being here, Alia. Do you have anything else?
See you in Seattle and/or in Boston. Sign up for those events, and we'll see you there. That's all. Goodbye.
Have a good day.